Founded in 1866, the American University of Beirut overlooks the Mediterranean Sea in Ras Beirut, one of the Lebanese capital's most cosmopolitan neighborhoods. The campus is home to world-class researchers, guiding some of the region's and world's most gifted students. Entering campus via Main Gate, you come upon College Hall, the preeminent symbol of AUB, which houses the offices of the president and other faculty and administrators. Behind this is Javed Memorial Library, the main library on campus. The upper portion of AUB's campus runs along the thoroughfare of Bliss Street and contains our most historic buildings, many built in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. At the eastern edge is the Medical Gate, and inside are Van Dyke Hall, housing the Faculty of Health Sciences, and the Diana Tamari Sabach Building for the Faculty of Medicine. Post Hall is home to AUB's world-famous Archaeological Museum. The magnificent Assembly Hall is a former chapel that is now used for major university events and concerts. The western end of Upper Campus is home to the Faculty of Arts and Sciences, the largest faculty at AUB. Central Campus also includes the main cafeteria and Adadaj Hall and West Hall, which is a hub of student activities. The buildings on the quad surrounding the beautiful green oval reflect architectural influences ranging from Ottoman era to postmodernism. These include the historic buildings of Nicely, Jessup, Fisk, and Bliss Halls, as well as the newly constructed home of the Issam Ferris Institute, designed by Zaha Hadid. Moving to Lower Campus from the old observatory, you can see the green field, another landmark, and AUB's beach next to the famous Beirut Corniche. To the west are the Faculty of Agricultural and Food Sciences and the Biology, Physics, and Chemistry buildings. Surrounding the athletic field are the Charles Hostler Student Center and the Suleiman S. Olayan School of Business. Moving east, there is the Faculty of Engineering and Architecture with the new Irani Oxy Engineering Complex, Bechtel Building, Dar el Handasa Architecture Building, and the CCC Scientific Research Building. Finally, to the southeast is the AUB Medical Center, a standalone complex and the site of much of the region's most significant medical breakthroughs. The complex also houses the Hariri School of Nursing and the Saab Medical Library, one of the region's oldest libraries.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, FAS alumni. I'm Nadia Cheikh. I'm the Dean of the Faculty of Arts and Sciences. And I am one who has a long-standing relationship with AUB. I was an undergraduate student in the early 80s, and I have had the privilege, the honor of serving AUB academically and administratively for more than 25 years as professor, chair, director, interim associate provost, and now dean. Since its establishment in 1866, AUB has based its educational philosophy, its standards, and its practices on the American liberal arts model of higher education. As per its stated mission, the university believes deeply and encourages freedom of thought and expression and seeks to foster tolerance and respect for diversity and dialogue. It seeks to graduate men and women committed to creative and critical thinking, lifelong learning, personal integrity, civic responsibility, and leadership. The Faculty of Arts and Sciences embodies this core commitment to the liberal arts model. FAS contributes to the breadth and diversity of AUB by educating all 7,400 undergraduate students in all AUB faculties. This is where all students, whether in biology, economics, mechanical engineering, business, or agriculture, or health sciences, or nursing, all of them meet to learn communication skills, math, physics, history, ethics, civilization studies, and the like. FAS is the meeting place, not just meaning a physical meeting space, but a meeting of ideas and the confluence of minds. With 22 departments, programs, and centers offering undergraduate and graduate degrees, FAS has over 3,500 students and more than 200 faculty members in the ranks who make the FAS experience a truly unique one, providing a space for every AUB student to access our FAS spirit of lively debate, exploration, and intellectual rigor. Our mission at FAS, AUB's oldest, largest, and most diverse faculty, is not simply to train students for future careers, but to encourage students to be inquisitive, curious, and critical, to teach them how to speak, how to write, how to learn, how to ask questions, how to present opposing views, how to navigate ambiguities, and how to see the world from varied perspectives. These are some of the most important qualities for the world in which we live in today, and especially so in our region. FAS helps students create their own futures in a rapidly changing world and equips them to deal with today's challenges and realities. And for that, at FAS, we have been capitalizing on the core, on the humanities, which provide all AUB students with long-term skills to understand themselves and their context. You could say that in these times of great disruption and change, FAS stands at the forefront of shaping the future of education in Lebanon and the region. The challenges facing our societies in the Arab world, in Lebanon in particular, are social, historical, cultural, and political in nature. Questions of how to promote tolerant and inclusive societies, women equality, and educational attainment are as relevant as ever and are the foci of the humanities disciplines. In the panel discussions that will follow, my colleagues in the humanities will share with you their perspectives on the crucial role of the humanities in times of crisis. I want to thank you for joining us for this evening. And I wish to congratulate, in particular, those of you who graduated 25 years ago and 50 years ago. We look forward to receiving you on campus as soon as possible. Dr. Bana Bashur from Philosophy will moderate the panels just after this short video. Thank you for being with us.
I was looking for that thing that I did not know what it was until I spent a couple of years at AUB and then realized it is the humanities part.
In philosophy, in history, in sociology. These are fields that really shape
We will try again. Sorry for that.
I was looking for that thing that I did not know what it was until I spent a couple of years. was looking for that thing that I did not know what it was until I spent a couple of years at AUB and then realized it is the humanities part.
In philosophy, in history, in sociology. These are fields that really shape
I was looking for that thing that I did not know what it was until I spent a couple of years at AUB and then realized it is the humanities part.
in philosophy, in history, in sociology. These are fields that really shape one's mind.
The ambition that you can go beyond and keep growing.
We can accommodate different ideas, we can debate, we can talk freely, we can express ourselves, different from graduates of other schools.
I always knew that I should give back. That's what AUB teaches.
To get out of your shell and be part of a community and kind of that brings another community into it.
I mean, how to make the region better, how to address the complex, messy problems that the world faces and this region faces in spades.
This is the greatest, I think, the greatest lesson that you learn at AUB.
Probably the most important thing in transforming our lives and how to live with people in the future.
And that's it. I had those tools. I had those tools and I've used them.
These are the scholars of yesterday, today, and tomorrow that continue to keep, even in the darkest times, with all these forces that are opposing free thought, that are for a very dogmatic approach to scholarship, to thought, to everything, to religion. We continue to provide the scholars that innovate and allow us to make a difference in keeping the Arab world open and engaged in a real modern cultural dialogue.
Before I give the floor to Dr. Bana Bashour, President Khouri would like to address you for a few moments. President Khouri, the floor is yours. Unmute yourself, sir.
Can you hear me now? Sorry. WebEx kicked me out twice on my computer, so now I'm on my phone. Well, thank you to the alumni for joining. This is an unusual alumni year. It's not the way we wanted to have this year. I don't think it's the way anyone wanted, but I think what we're experiencing this year shows why this faculty is just so vital for not just the university, and by the way, the university will survive for at least another 154 years, at which point, to much regret from this particular faculty, I'll probably retire. But it plays a vital role in civil society. A civil society right now whose role in free speech and free thought is ever more vital when the Arab world is closing up to this kind of intellectual output. That's why I think investing in this faculty at this time, supporting it, growing it under the superb leadership of Dean Cheikh is critical. I know for my wife and I, we're going to complete 2 pledges for full scholarships at in this particular college. We feel it's our priority. We're both, I'm an alumnus of this university, as is my wife. So many of you are alumni of this university. We're asking all of you, our alumni, to stay close and to watch for the wonderful things that are starting to happen at this university in spite of COVID-19, and in particular at the Faculty of Arts and Sciences. So thank you to Dean Cheikh for your wonderful leadership, and thanks to all of you.
Thank you, President Khouri. Thank you for your words. Now I give the floor to Bana, Dr. Bana Bashour, professor in the Department of Philosophy. Please, the floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. It's very nice to be part of this panel, especially in these difficult and turbulent times. I was a little bit happy that we had this technical difficulty because it gave you a real life firsthand experience of what our students have been going through this past semester since we moved online. So we're gonna have a very exciting session today. There are gonna be 3 different panels. The first panel, I'm gonna start with our historians, starting with Dr. Tyler Brand, who is currently an assistant professor of Middle Eastern history at Trinity College in Dublin, but he's also an AUB alumnus. In fact, he got his PhD from the history department here at AUB. He's quite proud of that. And he's going to tell us about his area of research, which is how the Middle East, and particularly AUB, survived during times of crises in the beginning of the 20th century, particularly in the famine. So I'm going to leave the floor now to Tyler.
Am I unmuted now? That sounds good. Okay. Okay, am I unmuted? Yes? Okay, good. So I have very little time, which is difficult for a historian because we generally like to talk about lengthy periods of time for lengthy periods of time. But today, Dr. Cheikh had asked me to discuss the role of the humanities in times of crisis. My own particular fields, as Ben had mentioned, is the history of the Middle East during times of crisis, but especially Lebanon during World War I and the terrible famine that took place there. First, I kind of want to put into perspective exactly what the role of history as a humanity is when we're trying to discuss things like this. Whenever I'd ask my students, why do we study history? The immediate and wrong answer they always give me is in order to learn from our mistakes and so we don't repeat them in the future. As a historian, nobody listens to anything that we say. But it doesn't mean that there aren't things that we can take from this. History allows us to look at very concrete cases and to be able to draw conclusions from them in a very safe environment. You don't want to have to think about things like, say, during the corona pandemic. You'd like to kind of look back at, say, past cases and sort of draw information from that to then guide your behavior in the future. So it's giving you a warning, yes, which we will ignore. But it also maybe will give you a template that will show you how to deal with things in the future. So let's look at this, I guess, and apply this to my own area of specialization, which was Lebanon and the AUB in particular for this about 100 years ago. So the question I guess I want to start off with is what sort of role did the college take at that time? At the time, it was just the Syrian Protestant College, had not become the AUB yet. And how can we apply this to our understanding about what AUB can be right now in its myriad crises that we're experiencing now in Lebanon? So one thing I think that is often overlooked when we're thinking about the famine is that life kind of still went on. This is a period that lasted about, from November, August of 2014 up until November of 2018. This is 4 years plus. That is a significant period of time in which, of course, life still had to go on. And as Dr. Khouri had mentioned, the main goal of the university, of course, is to try to keep ourselves going for another 154 years or longer. So one thing that the university did a very good job of course, was staying alive. And this is important not just for the people who were employed there and the people who lived on the campus and who couldn't leave because there was a blockade on the seacoast by the Allies. People were forbidden from leaving the coast from the Ottoman side as well. But it also essentially gave people who wouldn't have the ability to really pay for their room and board back at home. During the famine, eating was very expensive, but you pay your tuition, people could eat on campus and live there. So this provided continuity for them and also continued on the sort of path of education that they had started. The university during the war graduated doctors, nurses, and other really necessary personnel that had to fight against things that were actually very important, like, say, the typhus epidemic that had taken place in 1915, 1916, 1917. In addition to this, of course, because the school is still going, you'd be kind of surprised to learn that many things that we consider normal school activities, like, say, sports clubs, plays, movies, things like this, actually continued on throughout the war. In fact, West Hall, which had been finished in 1914, became a central hub of culture for Ras Beirut, and people on Saturdays from around the community were invited in, where they could come and watch a movie. There was a skating rink downstairs. People put on plays. There was bowling. And it really brought together the community. I think that really this is a part of the history that we need to kind of keep in mind. The AUB has been a center of the community of Ras Beirut in particular, but also Lebanon for quite some time. And with this too, the AUB brought a lot of strong protection of the Syrian Protestant College. Because the Syrian Protestant College was an American institution and America did not actually declare war against the Ottoman Empire, despite being against the Ottoman's allies, this actually protected the institution pretty well. Also, Howard Bliss and a number of other faculty at the university, including Arthur Dray, had a very close relationship with the Ottoman and central authorities, including Jamal Pasha, who was running things in Syria at the time. Because of this, they had some influence over the things that were taking place, especially in a local sense. This allowed them to do things like, say, protect the Iranian students, which the Ottomans actually tried to conscript into the army because they were Muslims. And because they couldn't return back to Iran, they were basically stuck on campus. Bliss interceded on behalf of the students, and they wound up just being protected during the wartime period. But it also extends to things like, say, the relief efforts that the university also had done during the war. And this is the thing we most remember, I think, during the World War I period. The fact that you had these major things like, say, soup kitchens or things like, say, the Red Cross, in order to ensure that the people who were starving had the ability to make their way through the war without suffering too extensively. As early as January of 1915, actually, the university had people going out doing needs assessments, putting together hiring committees, and actually giving out direct aid. This was stopped in 1915 in July, but it then moved into the mountain where they began working with the Ottoman Red Crescent. So once it became a little bit more difficult to do work, you had people like, say, Arthur Dray, who wound up establishing a soup kitchen in Bromana, which spent about $180,000, which is the equivalent of about $2.5 to $3 million solely on that soup kitchen. Bayard Dodge, who was about 26 years old when the war began, wound up running several soup kitchens in the mountain and wound up actually harnessing the support of the Presbyterian community in America. He was from the Phelps Dodge sort of kind of hierarchy there. Which eventually then led into Nearest Relief, which he then wound up running after the war. Nearest Relief brought about $109 million into the region after the wartime period. So I'm going to cut myself a little bit short here. Again, historians like to talk a bit. But when we're looking at the sort of situations that, we can compare the past and the present at this point, one thing we have to see is the AUB had positioned itself as this very central hub as part of the community. When the AUB declared itself and changed its slogan to that they may have life, and that they may have life and have it more fully. This was something that wasn't just a metaphor, though. This was something that, based upon the experience of the university and the sort of connection they felt as part of the community in Lebanon and Beirut, was something they felt really defined them. And I think that, as Dr. Khoury has actually done both in his little discussion today, but then also things he's written in the newspapers. This is really a major part or major role that the AUB can play as we move forward in this. The AUB is still a central part of the country of Lebanon. And based on the sort of success that it has had because of its outreach, it could be something that we can continue on as we move into the future. So I'll turn this back over to Benna. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tyler. This was fascinating. I didn't know many of these things that you told us, and I feel like we should all get a course in the history of AUB. Before moving on to our next, also quite exciting historian, I'd like to ask all the attendees if they can turn on their cameras, because we would like to take a photos for memorabilia. We can't take a photo together, but it's nice to take a photo online of the session. Our next speaker, Dr. Makram Rabah, was an undergraduate here at AUB, and he was very active. He was one of the most active, as far as I remember, when he was still here. And he continues to be extremely active. He got his PhD from Georgetown University. He's currently a lecturer at the history department at AUB. His interest is in modern Middle East. So he's going to talk to us about the time period after the one that Tyler just talked about. So thank you very much, Tyler, and let's go, Makram.
Hello, Thank you, Bana, and thank you for everyone for attending this. Actually, I came here in 1999. I never left. I don't intend to leave neither EUB nor Lebanon. I also grew up in Beirut and around Ras Beirut, and for me, EUB is more than just calling it home. And the fact that I'm a historian on EUB, given that my first book, which is Campus at War, documents the history of student activism on campus, but also I do deal with the civil war in Lebanon and the ideas of collective memory and all of this. For me, EUB is the epitome of resilience. For me, EUB is not only a Lebanese entity, but rather a regional entity. And I don't need to be preaching to the choir here. We all know the importance of EUB. And I think you will be hearing one of my students, Uba Ali, who I had the pleasure of teaching when she was a freshman. And now she's almost to graduate. And she can tell you why history is important and what we talk about in class and why is this important. For me, history is not about dates. This is what first thing you hear when you tell someone you're a historian. For us, history is a living organism. EUB has withstood the test of time, and as President Khoury pointed out, we will stay here despite the many attempts to close this institution, simply because we are needed, simply because we do serve a humanities and liberal arts mission. And more importantly, we have to see, is Lebanon and the region and the world in general better without EUB? Certainly, this is not the case. If we want to trace the history of EUB, just like Tyler was saying in World War I and the evolution of this Protestant missionary institute into a more modern one, especially under Stephen Penrose and later other presidents, we'll see the importance that EUB served for all the constitutional movements in the region. This is a very important incubator where we graduated the different waves of people who went home and who started the constitutional movements, gave constitutions to their countries. We are always blamed, and currently they blame us for the current prime minister. We have our black sheep. We have our black sheep. This is fine. We cannot tell people how to think and what to think. We give them the atmosphere. We give them the incubator for liberal free speech, and whatever happens, this is their own identity here being at play. But however, I do belong to the tribe which we call EUB. And many people say that we are pompous and we are very EUB-centric. We are EUB-centric simply because the history of EUB and the evolution of the political movements on campus, be it the Arab nationalist movement, starting with the Al-Urwa al-Wusta in the 1920s, and moving on to the 1930s and the 40s with the Qawmiyin al-Arab, and later on the pro-Palestinian Lebanese faction and the movement of the PLO from Jordan to Lebanon, where EUB basically was a very good indicator of what would happen in Lebanon. And actually, people were throwing chairs and bottles in 1970, and later on, they ended up throwing bullets at each other. This is not the whole idea here that even EUB in 1975 played a very important role, not only for Ras Beirut, but the idea of there's proper civilization in Lebanon, and Ras Beirut always epitomized this. Our problem is that we are always attacked, that we have our walls, and these walls prevent us from interacting with people around us. This is not true. These walls are only rocks where you can actually join EUB, be it figuratively or physically, by engaging EUB in dialogue and debate. I'm not trying to take away from the importance of sciences. Definitely sciences do play an important role. However, humanities and history in particular is what gives people a tool or a weapon to use. I always tell this to my students: when you sit down over dinner, you don't start by talking about the actual closing of the deal. This is uncouth and ungentlemanlike to start by talking business. So we talk about history, we talk about politics, and more importantly, we are graduating activists without them knowing. And this was very clear from my interaction with my own students, and even as Bana pointed out, I was labeled as a professional student, someone who's engaged in student politics, and I'm very proud of this. However, I'm a EUB student activist. I respect the law, I play by the rules, and ultimately I believe in non-violent gradual change. And this is what we are trying to institute in Lebanon, and this is what EUB stands for. Resilience and EUB are bedfellows. You cannot take one without the other. The history of EUB, particularly during turmoil and during crisis, and particularly what we are experiencing now is a poster child for crisis. We will survive simply because we are resilient, because we all come from different, diverse backgrounds, and this is what is important. The whole idea, we don't have one EUB, we have different houses in one mansion, so to speak, to use the words of my late mentor, Kamal Salibi. It is very important to always keep in mind that although it is a bleak and very challenging times, the history of EUB has always been a beacon of hope, and this beacon of hope starts by you, the graduates of EUB, not forsaking Lebanon or forsaking EUB, and the whole idea that in times of crisis, people go back home, they don't leave. And this is what the Lebanese and the Ayyubites have always done over the years. And I think this is the time for us to pack and come back and to prove to all these people, I am a history professor. I don't want to be in agriculture. I don't want to plant. I don't want to harvest. I want to teach. And this is my right. And anyone who says otherwise does not belong to the idea of Lebanon, neither belongs to UB. And certainly, we will never stop saying what's right. And UB will always have its gates open to whoever wants to join. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Makram. Also, very interesting perspective. Thank you. Another announcement that towards the end of the session, we're going to leave some time for questions and answers. But if the question pops up in your head and you don't want to forget it, you can type it in the chat, and we'll hopefully get to it, even if you don't ask it right away. So that concludes our first session, on the history of resilience at AUB. Thank you to both Makram and Tyler. We're moving on to another exciting panel, quite different, and this is one on art, theater, writing, storytelling in a time of crisis. So these are really the subjects of the three different discussants who are very special, and I'll introduce the first of them right now. Tariq Mahmoud, Dr. Tariq Mahmoud is a professor in the English department. He's also kind of and I like to think of him as an artist for all seasons, like a man for all seasons, but with a focus on art, because not only is he a stage actor, a director, he also writes poetry. I also read he doesn't really talk about this, but I have read a really interesting children's book that he's written. He during the COVID, he was trying to use comic relief as a way to address stressors, and most recently academically, he's developed gaming along with the computer science department, a video game minor. So something very exciting that's going on at AUB now. So he's into video games now, but he's going to talk to us about the importance of art in a time of crisis. Tariq?
Thank you, Bana, for your kind words, and thank you for all of you for coming back and joining us. I'm a Kashmiri by background. I was born in Pakistan. I grew up in England, where I got brutalized, where I learned my basic tricks of the trade. And I learned that unless we begin the process of telling our own stories, we haven't got any humanity left. And I'll address a few other bits and pieces. When I came to Lebanon, I realized many of my students were actually trying to pretend to be white. It upset me, it saddened me, because that's what I did when I was trying to grow up in the schools of Britain. I tried to hide in the shadows of whiteness. I couldn't get there, it wouldn't allow me in. So I had to learn a voice of my own. I was uneducated. I was imprisoned, and just before you run off, but I was acquitted completely, along with many of my other colleagues, because we were wrongly put inside and supported by thousands of people. But I realized that unless I wrote my own story, the African proverb came to me: if the lion doesn't write its story, it becomes the story of the hunter. We had no voice. We were fictionally invisible. The videos made of us talked about us as somehow the demons outside. The films I saw, I was an enemy. I saw the Arabs as an enemy in all the films. I saw Muslims as monsters. It wasn't a world I was willing to accept. But when I began to teach, I also saw that my students was so heavily influenced by these things. And I sat back and I began to ask myself, so those of you who may be wondering, what does this man know about gaming? Nothing, but I knew the kids did. And I trusted my students. And they're brilliant. They're actually, some of them, working in gaming companies. And what's gaming on earth got to do with humanities? We exist as characters in the real world. We exist as characters in fiction. We exist as characters as teachers. We exist as actors as teachers. And we exist as characters within the world of our gaming. But what on earth is that to do with humanities? If we can't have a study of humanities, we can't even understand our own humanity. How did we get where we are? Why on earth are we here? Where the hell are we going to go? How are we going to get there, if there is a there to go? Two, now it gives us the chance to imagine a world, especially in moments of crisis. Now, I told you I was from Kashmir. It's the most militarized zone on earth. I told you I was born in Pakistan. It's one of the most brutalized countries as well. I told you I grew up in England. I was completely, utterly engulfed in the fallout of racism. It continues to this very day in this country, and it continues its legacies abroad, because the England that I grew up in is not an England I can ever leave. Even if I leave that England, it follows me, because England will never leave me. And that, I believe, is also the experience of many of the Lebanese that I've come across and met. So in a way, it gives, when I got to Lebanon, it gave me a chance to understand England. Now that I'm here, I'm actually thinking back to Beirut. Now, so what on earth has it? Maya Angelou said some really amazing words, and she says there's no greater agony than bearing in mind that there is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside of you. All of you who are listening, all of you who left 25, 30, whatever years ago, all your stories are as important as mine, as important as ever written. And all of you who are young, and some of you I know were in my class, because I saw your pictures flash on screen, your stories are just as important. The agony of not telling those stories is just as important. Humanities gives you the ability to tell that story. Untelling that stories, you can't be lovers. No lovers can fall in love. No war can take place. No hatred can be understood without us having to tell those basis of our stories. And in telling the stories, we have a language. It doesn't have to be the language of words. It doesn't have to be the language of painting, but an architect tells a story, a computer scientist tells a story, a doctor tells a story, a patient is a story. If we do not have stories, we are nothing. In the moment of this crisis, all it tells me is I have always been in crisis. I have never known a moment, not a single day of peace. Hence my writing reflects the crisis. Hence it reflects war, but it reflects love, because we cannot live through life without having love. We can't live through life without having been lied to. And here comes the question of the gaming of the stories. Support these kids. I have never come across the talent of my students. And some of them are complete numbskulls as well, but that's by the by. Some of them are absolutely amazing. And now we've started a whole series of things. So what humanity gives us the ability to formulate meaning, perhaps for questions that can't even be formulated, for things that we can't understand as of yet. One of the comments in the video was, it took me a long time to understand, and it's true. We don't have to rush understanding. And my final words really here are that without, I'm very honored to have had the chance to go to Lebanon, but when I wake up in the morning, I really don't know which war to follow. The one in Kashmir, the most militarized zone, the one just on the border, the one in the south, the one where. But I really have reconciled myself to that so long as I have the chance to tell my stories, I have a chance to keep hold of my humanity. And if you're listening, and my very last points are, not only are your stories important, they're not your stories, they're our stories, they're my stories. They belong not just to you. You have the ability, get hold of a pen, take it out for a walk, and keep it walking until the ink runs out. If you don't like pens, use a pencil. If you don't like that, use your keyboard, but tell your story, and don't let the hunter be the storyteller.
Thank you very much, Tariq, expressing really the now we know why you're an artist for all seasons, because you have the heart and the mind of an artist, and you can express that very nicely. Thank you. Our next speaker is, I think most of you know her. She's quite critically acclaimed. She's quite, her work is widely viewed. She's a stage actor, a director. She's a professor here at AUB, lucky for us. Sahar Assaf. Her work is very varied. I've seen plays of her that were translations of Shakespeare, others that were just very socially engaged, having to do today with the moment in time and in space. So it's very exciting to hear Sahar talk about theater in a time of crisis. So go ahead, Sahar.
Thank you very much, Bana, and thank you, Dean Cheikh, for inviting me to participate in this very interesting event. I'm very happy to be here. In 2018, I spent 10 days at Odden Teatret in Holstebro, Denmark, attending Odden Week Festival, during which we had daily meetings with the founder of Odden, legendary director Eugenio Barba. Since then, I've been frequently returning to my notes from these meetings. The wisdom of Barba is serving me like nothing else, especially now in these times of uncertainty. In our last meeting with Barba, he sent us off by saying, "You need theater, but theater doesn't need you." His words resonated deeply with me, not only because theater is the only thing I want to do and the only thing I know how to do, but also because my theater work has always been inspired by a need to understand, a need to reflect, a need to express anger, a need to challenge a status quo, or a need to imagine an alternative reality. There has always been a crisis at the epicenter of the work I do, a personal emergency, that is. Artists thrive on catastrophes, all while fighting to make ends meet. It's not new. But perhaps what is different about the current crisis is that it put a halt to our activities. We had to cancel the shows we're working on. Suddenly, one of the three pillars that are mandatory for our work to exist, that is to say, an assembly, became a public health hazard. The sense of loss we experienced due to this is doubled. We didn't only lose the work we've been doing, but we lost the audiences. The concise yet complete definition of theatre as put by theatre critic Eric Bentley, A performed B for C, is instantly put to test. C, our audiences are everywhere now, but also nowhere. We will create the stories, but who are we talking to? To whom are we going to tell these stories, and how? Nonetheless, this loss of audiences imposed on us theatre makers an opportunity. It gave us time and distance to contemplate our practice. That's when not being paralyzed by the sense of fear and trauma, and perhaps make the realization that we need to work on innovative ways and develop new tools to be able to continue to serve our communities and make our work accessible to our audiences. Accessibility is a major issue that requires consideration. As you all know, the times of uncertainty here in Lebanon are not only due to COVID-19, but to a more dangerous virus we've been dealing with, a ruling class that is actually making COVID-19 look like a lesser evil. This pandemic will come to an end at some point, and we will find ourselves on the other side. But what's also waiting for us Lebanese on that other side is a graver dead end. In Lebanon, governmental funding for the arts has been insufficient, usually amounting to a very small percentage of a typical production's budget. The Ministry of Culture, for example, has been giving out a flat stipend of around 8 million Lebanese pounds to individual producers or directors. Now, with the recession, we can expect that this modest level of support will diminish, if not completely stop. Artists have habitually made up for the lack of governmental support by seeking private funding through cultural organizations or corporate sponsorships. We do lack studies and data on the state of the arts in times of crisis in Lebanon, but from basically being active in the field for the last 15 years and being observant of the changes that are happening, I can say that it is usually in times of crises that artists become more productive and inventive. I am positive that artists will continue to do the work because that's what they know how to do and that's what they need to do. But perhaps the essential question to ask is, how are we to sustain an audience in times of economic depression? In the past years, we at the AUB Theatre Initiative have been aiming to make our work more inclusive and more accessible. We moved our plays out of the prosceniums, for instance, to the streets of Beirut and other places. One of our recent projects was producing Garcia Lorca's Blood Wedding in the village of Hammana, where the village, its houses, church, and halls became our stage, and its alleys, the street and streets, our backstage. We took the play to the people instead of waiting for them to show up at the theater. This, of course, was only possible due to the support of our institution. During this time of huge economic stress, I am sure artists will still find ways to express themselves, but my concern has to do with the rates of participation. I'm apprehensive that this economic crisis will distance the same people for whom our work is necessary away from the theater. In that same meeting with Barba at Odin, he said that theater as an art form is guided by one principle, which is profit. He also said that each one has to work to earn their living, and theater is a beast, a huge monster. I know artists will do everything in their power to keep this monster alive, but this monster feeds on audiences, and to reach out to them, we will need funding. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sahar. Well, just to follow up on that, it's not surprising that when we met a highly acclaimed New York playwright, he described Sahar as the real deal. So her talk, little intervention here shows us that. Next is the wonderful Rima Rantisi. Rima, I'm not even sure how to begin to describe Rima because she's so active, she's everywhere. When she's not teaching students how to write, creative writing, she's editing Rusted Radishes that she'll tell us all about, or she's engaged in university life in one form or another, whether it's with faculty or students, or she's organizing some community work in her local neighborhood, or she's being a very active activist on many fronts. So Rima, go ahead and tell us a little bit about Rusted Radishes. Rima, are you there? Rima?
Rima, the floor is yours.
We may be having a technical problem.
It's to be unmuted. We'll try.
You can't unmute. Can you
Yeah, we hear you. We hear you now. We hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay, because it wasn't unmuting on my end. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Oh, good.
Okay. Thank you so much, Bana, for that wonderful introduction and for hosting us. And thank you to Dean Cheikh and for everybody who is here and all my colleagues. I'll tell you a little bit about Rusted Radishes. It began when, which I am the editor-in-chief of. It began when I and another lecturer in creative writing, we found enormous talent and skill in our classrooms. And we founded a journal that highlights these students' work. And we wanted it to be side by side with more established writers to empower the students and also to create some kind of level balance between, the world out there of writers and artists and the world inside the university amongst the students in the classroom. So we also stipulated that that space would be for Lebanese or people with a connection to Lebanon, and later as we evolved, we opened it to the region and of course to the diaspora. With hundreds, with thousands of literary journals throughout, in the world, there are very few that are spaces for those voices of this region. So we agreed that we wanted also for it to be multidisciplinary, and which meant that we would also accept artwork as well as give it an interesting contemporary design. And we could find all of that talent and all of that know-how not only in the region, but right there in the university. So we sought out student designers from the Department of Architecture and Design who completed the design A to Z for the first time ever for us and also in their careers, and whose creative print remains on the today through the logo and the design concept. So today we have over 20 team members, including graduate and undergraduate students from across the university, alumni, and 7 faculty senior editors from FAS and FEA. Our most recent success has been making the journal completely bilingual, so having an Arabic section and an English section. And that's thanks to Dr. Rana Isa and Dr. Zainab. Ultimately, we're the only literary and art journal in English and Arabic in the MENA region and its diaspora. Our most recent call ended on June 1st, and we are currently completing our editorial work of selecting, editing, and sequencing the work. The team has been solid during these difficult times, which was something that was more than I can ask for. And in fact, they asked that we have more space for them to, for youth, especially to, write now. And so, what motivated them? Why did they do it? They felt that the journal offered an outlet and the platform for where they can speak from about their perspectives on what is happening, and empower them to look at work from people, their contemporaries, and to have some sort of stamp of the present to live on in history. So one thing that we started, and it was during the pandemic, was a series called Thawrat. And Thawrat focuses on revolutions throughout the region, but of course it was born of the revolution that started in October in Lebanon. And so in somewhat of a coincidence, our next issue is health and illness. So we kind of had 2 calls happening at the same time. And because the pandemic created a new reality for people, and the Lebanese were coming off another new reality that forced us to be in completely different modes, where we were outside, then we were inside, with one crisis piggyback another crisis and another crisis. Many writers were writing in the moment about the now, salvaging, grasping onto every detail possible to recount, reflect on, and accept the moment that is now, while others had a hard time processing and found it very difficult to concentrate. I'm sure many of us can relate to that. And we found that as a journal, we needed, and basically as publishers, we needed to give time for people to process, and we had to be more compassionate. We had to be more flexible as people expressed the difficulty with facing their art. In other words, having to make big statements that were unraveling truths that were happening before their eyes and which seemed somehow incomprehensible and also unprocessed. So not to mention that, the new realities kept people's children at home, and with writers and artists, it gave them less space to create. While students also had to face new realities at home, writing and art provided a welcome outlet in many cases. And with the use of our online web journal and social media, we have been able to publish what is now in the present, while still providing a print journal, thanks to the support of FAS and MSFEA for the regular annual publication that comes in November. So finally, we're always going to write, and we're always going to make art, because that's what we know what to do, as Sahar said. But as our situation becomes more difficult financially, we suffer too, and we're the first ones to suffer. As publishers or editors, we're looking forward how the situation will affect printing costs, how people will be able to find time to create as they worry about their finances. We see our bookstores in this country closing. We see them, books flying into another, you have to be upper class now to buy books. So being an artist is always a struggle, but much worse in multiple crises, in a crisis, and here in multiple crises. Ultimately, we continue for the love of what we do, as we always have done, while keenly aware that our writing and art and publishing is necessary. And we're always trying to tell everybody it's necessary. You have to have our art and writing in the world. But I think that the world needs to more loudly acknowledge this necessity. And I just want to share with you, in case you have not seen our journal, I'm just going to show you our website. And it can be easy. Let's see. Okay. Here we go. Oops. Can you see it? Can you guys see the screen? Bana?
Yeah, we can. We
Okay.
can.
Okay. So this is our website, and you can find all of these featured texts are new that have come out in the past month. This is a piece in our Saurat series. These are images from the Saura. These are pieces from Dima Shihabi, who's Lebanese American who lives in California. She's an academic and a writer. Karim Zidane is from Egypt, and he wrote a little piece, a fiction piece about Egypt, kind of riffing on their own revolution. So we're working, a lot of people doing things, and yeah, that's all. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Rima. You guys are basically, to turn it back full circle, you're basically providing an outlet for the duty to share our stories that Tariq started this session with. So we came back full circle, start with the need to express yourself and then the outlet to do so. We're now turning to our last panel that is about teaching and learning in humanities in a time of crisis. And in this session, we are going to actually have two of our star students, well, one recent alumna. But before we get to the recent alumna, I'm going to start a conversation with one of our students from a faraway land. Ubal Ali, also one of our star students. She's a MasterCard scholar. I often do these MasterCard interviews. The students we interview or the candidates we interview are always so impressive. And to be able to win this award means that student is really special. And Uba has proven herself time and time again to be that special student. Besides her excellence in her academic work, Uba is an activist that is using the knowledge and the learning that she got from AUB to fight the good fight, so to speak, in her own community in Somaliland. And so she is the co-founder of Solace for Somaliland Girl, and she is actually one of the winners of the Resolution Project. It says so on the program. So what I want to start, I'm going to do this in terms of in the form of a conversation, Uba. So you're far away from home, and can you tell us about coming to AUB? What brought you here? This whole experience of being here.
Thank you so much, Bana, and thank you so much to Dean Nadia, Cheikh, and everyone else who joined this program. To go back to my journey when I was coming to AUB, honestly, I did not know anything about AUB and Lebanon. So I get into MasterCard, and I was placed to go to AUB, and then I started Googling more about AUB and its location. And honestly, I was scared. I remember when I came my first time, it was so different. I was, different, and I have to go to a freshman year. So the freshman year was really hard for me because, first of all, I was different. And when you are Black and African and coming to Lebanon, it was so hard for me. And I started to question my own identity and why am I different? Why are people staring at me? So it was, a huge transition. But of course, AUB helped me to actually question my role in this world and my role to be an active citizen in my own community, but also in the world, and to give back to sort of to say my community, but also to aim high the ways that I can make the world a better place, which is more inclusive, which everyone feels that they are a part of, humanity in general.
Wonderful. I was teaching a freshman course this past spring, and the theme of it was so related to this that I thought maybe I'll say a few words about that. The theme of the course, the title of the course was Philosophy in a Time of Crisis. So, it fits right in with this symposium. And so you said you were a freshman and you were overwhelmed by coming in. So imagine the students that I taught in the spring semester who were first overwhelmed by this very turbulent year that they went through, and then they had to deal with this switch to online learning. And we professors had such a big difficulty of waking up one day and realizing we have to switch everything we've been used to online. But all you had to do was talk to one student to realize how much more difficult it was for them. And on top of that, being freshman students, I felt like this was a time where again, some of them were stuck here, some of them were able to go back to their families abroad. Some of them have families here, but outside Beirut. So it was a very interesting experience that allowed them to think in ways that they hadn't thought before. It almost forced them into thinking of those ways. So given this, again, the difficulty of this switch, I felt like having some background in philosophy, some useful tools, techniques, or a discussion of values is extremely important for them. So I'd like to hear your perspective as a senior going through similar things, but if you can still tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, thank you so much. For me, like AUB taught me the power of resilience. If you tell me to define AUB with one word, it would be resilient, and it will always be a resilient, honestly. And Nelson Mandela once said, "Do not judge me by my success, judge me by how many times I fall down and I got back up again." And I think that's what defines AUB and students, or like AUB alumni in general, or even in Lebanon, because where I came from and Lebanon actually do have similar history and we have similar struggles. So whenever I see something happening in Lebanon, I always reflect on what's happening in my own country. And I took a course with Dr. Makram Rabah 2 semesters ago, and I took a course. The course was about the Lebanese history. So I learned more about the Lebanese history, the civil war, what happened in Lebanon, and how AUB and Lebanon remain to be a beacon of hope for many Lebanese, and also for many refugees who live in Lebanon. And for that course, we learned how AUB students, mainly during the war, like an AUB MC, became where everyone, despite their sectarian background, used to feel comfortable. And I was like, this is what AUB, this is what AUB symbolizes, like inclusivity and forgiveness and community and resilience, because you could see how the war was devastating and like a lot of people lost their life, but still AUB remained to be the heart of hope for the Lebanese community and also for the AUB students at that time. And reflecting on like Lebanon and how AUB students always, hold their own values to change their community, but also the mentality of those people who believe in the power of sectarianism always, motivated me to come up with a way that I could also give back to my community, that I could challenge the stereotypes and the norms that many Somalis do believe about, Somali men do believe about women and the role of women. So the activism of AUB students also motivates me to be an active member, and also AUB professors who are encouraging me to think critically and to use my, reasoning to so I can give back to my community, not only my community, but also speak up and those issues that are more important to me, show me a different side of me and like my hidden talents. And that's why I always embrace, AUB as an institution and what it stands for.
Oh, wonderful. I mean, I want to add maybe a little bit of the theoretical angle here, and then I want to ask you a question based on the theoretical answer. I think one of the things that we learn, so the resilience is through this community engagement, being part of the AUB community, but it's also, there's something about learning the humanities and learning how to think carefully and slowly and critically is essential for recognizing values, right? So there are lots of questions that we ask ourselves. First of all, what do I value? What is it that I think is important? I think we're forced to answer this question during times of crises. It becomes an essential question. What is it that I find important? What is it that I value? And another extremely important question is, well, should I value it? Is it an important thing to value in and of itself? And a final, also equally important question is, well, how do I apply this value in my actual behavior, right? So each of these questions needs some very slow, again, in this modern world where everything is extremely fast, we need to slow down, stop, and think very carefully. And the tools and the skills provided by philosophy can be applied everywhere. And I like applying them today to these kinds of questions, because these are the ones that our students felt were the most important things to them now. Now, again, what I love about your activism is that there's a continuity between the theoretical values that you hold and the way that you actually apply them. So you talk about inclusivity, you talk about respect, about resilience, you apply that in your social work and social activism. So if you can tell us a little bit about your social activism before we move on to our next.
So I am a co-founder of an organization called Solace for Somaliland Girls Foundation. And basically what we are trying to do is to eradicate female genital mutilation. And for those of you who don't know what female genital mutilation is, it's basically a ritual practice or a removal of some or all parties of the external parties of female genitalia. And it's a practice mainly, a lot of countries, about 30 countries do practice it. And my country, 98% of the women who live in my country undergo through this practice. So, Somalis do associate this practice with Sharia law, even though there's nowhere in the Quran that said, women should be cut. So, when the corona crisis happened, schools remained to be closed back home, and a lot of girls are staying home. And at this time, because their parents are taking advantage of them staying home, they are being cut. So as an active member of my society, I was like, how can I do something? Because I don't have to sit here and made to be quiet while I know every single day a lot of girls are going through this horrific practice. So I started this social media campaign through Solace, which is like our organization. So we try to invite doctors, religious figures, members of the community. So people actually, even if we change someone's mentality, one person that's most important, like that will be important to us. So we talk to them, how this practice should be eradicated as soon as possible. And for me, I consider myself as a feminist. And when you are in my country and you talk about feminism, people will be like, oh my God, so you are against men. And I'm trying to shift that mentality and that rigid, narrow-minded concept of viewing feminism, because feminism is not about a movement that's against men. It's like a movement that's trying to showcase all the different aspects of that, all the problems that women face, but also in somehow empowering women. So we are trying to also grab the attention of men so they can be a part of our movement, because we need their support so FGM could be eradicated. And also we are trying to motivate young women and young girls back home that they can speak up, that they can be an agent of change. Because when you educate a young girl, I am pretty sure you are educating a whole nation. And that's what we are trying to shift.
That's fantastic. We're so proud of you. Thank you for being part of AUB, and thank you for all the work you do as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. So next up we have Dr. Mahmoud Al-Batal, Professor Al-Batal. We stole him away from University of Texas, Austin. We're very happy to have stolen him away. Besides having written the book that you ask anyone in the world, what Arabic book? What book should we use to learn Arabic? That's Mahmoud's co-authored book on the subject. And what what is, I think, very wonderful about Mahmoud's work and his approach is that his aim is to change people's relationship to the Arabic language, make Arabic exciting again, right? Is how I would describe his research. And it worked on me. After having conversations about language, about the importance of the Arabic language and our relationship to the language, Professor Batal, it really made me change the way I think and approach the Arabic language. So can you tell us more about teaching?
Thank you, Bana. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, great. I come to you from the Arabic department, a member of the faculty of the Arabic department, which is one of the earliest Arabic departments in the Arab world, and also from King's, that's the Center for Arab and Middle Eastern Studies. I direct the intensive summer Arabic program there. I feel privileged and blessed to be part of an institution that values humanities and values the study and the teaching and learning of languages, because I believe that languages are at the heart of humanities. Dr. Tariq told us something about the importance of telling our stories. Humanities, study of humanities is about telling our stories, and our goal is to be able to tell our story in our own language, but also in other languages as well. The more stories that we can tell in our language and in other languages make us appreciate diversity and appreciate tolerance, and makes us come closer to our humanity. So within this spirit, AUB established in the year 2000, established the intensive Arabic program to teach Arabic to non-native speakers of Arabic. And since 2000, we have attracted a large number of students from different parts of the world. Until this year, crisis struck us, and of course, Lebanon is not new to crises. We are expert at dealing with crises. So the question we faced is what to do with our summer program. How can we bring the students here, and how can we maintain our commitment to teaching languages when we have this crisis? And of course, with the use of technology, we decided to continue with the program and offer the program online. The challenge we had is how to maintain the same quality, that the interaction, the small groups, the face-to-face interaction, the individual attention, the group work. And I told the students when I said, okay, by doing the online course, you will be missing few things by not being in Lebanon. You will miss the tabbouleh and the hummus and the mnaish on Abdulaziz Street. But one thing you will not miss is the quality of instruction, the excellent quality that AUB has been known for its intensive summer program. We managed to we currently have 43 students who are studying Arabic for 4.5 hours every day, every single day. And they are in classes right now. As we speak, the students are interacting with their teachers every day. We managed to offer them a course that provides small group interaction, that offers, as I said, 4.5 hours of face-to-face interaction with instructors, working in groups, providing guest lectures, movies. So there is nothing that has changed in the quality of instruction. And I have heard the word resilience. The fact that we have a summer program at this time is a testimony to the resilience of AUB and the commitment of AUB to its mission of continuing to provide the best experience no matter what crisis we are facing. As teachers, I believe that we have learned a lot from this crisis. This has been a great learning moment for us teachers, and we are learning as we speak, and we are turning this into a new innovation that we will start in the fall, and we are going to turn this into some teaching practices in the fall as we are expanding more in the area of online instruction. So this has been a great experience and speaks very highly for AUB's commitment to languages and to humanities, and we thank you for your continued support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mahmoud. See, not all online learning is too bad, right? Thank you, that's great. And we're going to end our session by our recent graduate, very recent alumna, very fresh. Tamara just finished her bachelor's in media, in which she excelled, obviously. She's also the head, I'm sure all of the alumni here will get excited about this. She's the head of communication for our campus yearbook. I remember as a little kid when I used to see my parents' campus yearbooks, that itself got me excited about going to AUB. Just that very, it was so well put together. And so Tamara obviously excelled in that as well. So Tamara, you're going to be talking to us about teaching online. So please, about learning online, the learning experience online after having heard from Dr. Batal about teaching online.
Thank you so much, Bana, and thank you, Dina Cheikh, for having me. So as Bana just said, I just graduated from AUB, and for the next few minutes, I just want to talk to you a little bit about what the online experience was like for me as a student during this time of crisis. And I want to begin just by briefly acknowledging the challenges that students and professors had to face with online learning. Obviously, technologically speaking, it was tough with the internet connection issues and with the Wi-Fi issues and the electricity issues, but I think we all know what that's like, so I don't want to get into that too much. So instead, I want to focus on the positives of online learning, and I'm going to be tackling this topic from a more technical angle and just kind of explain the specific benefits of this experience from a student's perspective. So firstly, I just want to start out by saying that I was able to realize through this experience that online learning, it's not simply pre-recorded PowerPoint presentations. That can be a part of it, and certainly there are benefits to pre-recorded based lecturing. But when we first transitioned to an online semester, I personally worried that we would lose the interactive aspect of a classroom setting, especially because many of the courses that I've taken, which are mainly humanities, courses in the humanities, are very discussion based. But I was pleasantly surprised to find out that that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. I found that online learning really can be a space of productivity and interactivity, and it does represent our ability to adapt during extraordinary times like these. And so one specific thing that I consider to be a big success is the fact that in many courses, we were able to maintain participation and professors were able to facilitate discussions regardless of the online format. And I think that alone is a very difficult thing to do when you're sitting behind a computer screen. And based on what I saw in the courses that I took in the spring semester, online classes can actually encourage participation from those who may be maybe a little bit more shy to participate and speak up in a traditional classroom setting. When speaking to some of my classmates about this while we were comparing our experiences over the last semester, many of them told me that they found it easier to participate in class discussions because it felt like there was less pressure on them to do so, and there was less attention on them because, again, they are speaking through a screen, which was very interesting to me. Another thing I want to stress a little bit is the role of our professors during this time. As we know and as we heard, teaching was just as affected as learning, and so I think it's important to recognize that and to point out the specific ways in which professors were able to and basically forced to adjust the whole learning experience for us. So for instance,
This is Bana Bashur, huh?
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry? I'll continue. And so some of our professors directly incorporated the coronavirus pandemic into our class content, which really allowed us to learn a lot more about the virus itself, which obviously is very important, while also recognizing the effect that it's had on our daily lives and obviously on our academic experiences. And so we didn't simply ignore the virus and carry on with our class content. And while it is important to be able to continue what we've started and to keep the semester going, we also need to acknowledge our circumstances, which is something that everyone, especially here in Lebanon, has had to do for many months now. And our professors did exactly that. They recognized this and they acted accordingly, and they showed us what it's like to really make the best of a difficult situation. Also, in terms of structure, testing was adapted, which really allowed us to understand the value of taking our time with our work. A lot of courses changed from exam-based testing to more paper-based or project-based, or adapted in other ways through take-home exams, for instance. And so rather than simply memorizing and reciting back information, which understandably is sometimes the easiest and most convenient way to test students, this new method of online learning forced us to really apply our knowledge in a way that we hadn't done before in many courses, and helped us improve our time management skills. To put it simply, online learning it's a lot more independent, I feel, than the traditional university learning experience. And because of that, students were forced to work on their time management skills and take advantage of the free time that they had and use it to their benefit. And this, of course, with the support of our professors, that this whole process became a lot less stressful than it could have been. They were lenient when they had to be and supportive, but they also knew how to challenge us just enough to make sure that we were working as hard as we could during this experience. And this is all to say that I just think professors deserve to be acknowledged for their hard work. And although the semester was tough on students, we really do appreciate the effort that went into allowing us to continue our academic lives the way that we did. And we owe a lot to the professors that made that possible. And yeah, I just want to end by saying that this was definitely not how I imagined I would spend my last semester here at AUB, but it was definitely the most memorable and unique semester that I've had over the past 4 years. And overall, I'm very grateful, as I'm sure all of my peers are, that we were able to end our university experience knowing that we maintained the kind of resilience that the entire AUB community has really demonstrated for many decades now. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this contribution, Tamara. Before we take a few questions, we're running out of time. Before we take a few questions, Dean Cheikh would like to say a few words in closing. So, Dean Cheikh.
I will close after the Q&A.
I see. Okay. So perhaps now we can open the floor for questions. You can ask questions about any panel. I don't know if you would rather chat or you would rather speak up, since we don't. Yeah. You can go ahead and speak up if you have a question. If too many people speak up, then I'll intervene. Or write a question.
Hold on, where is she?
Yeah, I mean, we only have a couple of minutes, so it wouldn't have been time for very many questions. So perhaps we'll give it one more minute and wrap up. Or
oh, here.
Someone's trying to ask, I think. To Tyler. Okay. Many are comparing the current food insecurity in Lebanon to that of the World War I famine. How can historical analysis help us validate or not this comparison? Tyler?
I've definitely heard a lot of this. I think that we have to be really careful when we make comparisons to the past. The famine in World War I was a really unique situation. I mean, Lebanon had had famines, basically every couple of decades throughout all of its history. A lot of the foods that we have in Lebanon, like things like kish chickens, like dried foods and things like that, preservatives, like the mune, that's all geared to preserving things during times of crisis. But during World War I, you had a coastal blockade from the Allies. You had a complete cessation of trade. All of the basically 40% of all of the GDP of Mount Lebanon in 1914 came in as remittances. That was all gone because the Ottomans blocked any transfers of money in and out because basically the banks were run by the British and the French.